In this video, I'm going to show you a different workflow for animating in Unreal called the layered animation workflow. And along the way, I'm going to show you some neat tricks to speed up your animating process. In the precision jump tutorial, we used a mostly straight ahead pose to pose workflow that produced a complete pose at each selected moment across the animation as we went. And that gives a good feel for the final result as you go, but can sometimes lead to janky or stiff animations if you overly focus on reference matching and don't take care of how the animation looks across time as you go. At the end of the day though, it's just preference, and I'm making this video to encourage you to experiment with different workflows to find the hybrid approach that works best for you. Here we're going to animate a parkour roll vault, where the character rolls on their back over an obstacle, which is an ideal motion for a character that's holding a two-handed weapon or item. Our workflow here is simple, and I find it to be an excellent exercise for body part isolation and understanding how all the body parts interact with and affect each other, as well as being a much better workflow for keeping me on task, since unlike the pose-based workflow, this one forces you to follow a more methodical approach. We'll start with fully animating the body offset and body controls, and then move through the rig control by control, doing the same thing, adding each control animation in layers as we go. Now you can do this using literal layered control rigs. You won't have to. You can do it all on a single control rig, and that's what I'm going to be doing here since it's much faster, and I really don't see any benefits to the layered control rig approach here. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment if there's anything confusing or unclear in the video, if it was helpful to you, or if there's anything you'd like to see me make a video on in the future. Let's get into it.
We're animated parkour, but you won't get hurt unless you hurt yourself in an unrelated way, coincidentally.
As usual, I start from an empty game animation sample project, but you can start from any project at all, whether that's the third person sample or whatever. However, I do recommend the game animation sample project as I'm going to be using the UEFN Manny character. Let's get started. To start, we'll go ahead and create our level sequence. So I have a folder called AAA Roll Vault. I only named it that so that it would show up at the top of the content, be easier to find. But we'll go here, and if you just right click and then start typing, you can get to level sequence. We'll do that. We'll call this LS Roll Vault 1 and save it. And we can double click it to open it. So we now have it open in our scene. Let's add our mannequin. So we go here under Content, Characters, UEFN Mannequin Meshes. You'll find them right here. Drag that into your sequencer, not the scene, because that'll automatically set it up to be a spawnable, which means it'll go, like if you open it up in a different level, it'll just work. It'll bring the mannequin in for you. And then we'll bring in our reference. We'll go back to our content browser. I'm going to drag in my reference video, and I'll put it in the roll vault directory. So now I have my reference. Now this one's a little different. This one, I want to drag this into the scene first. And I'll go ahead and scale it up a bit. Bring it up here. So if you select it and then make sure you have the viewport selected with it selected, hit Control A, that'll bring it in. And you do want to disable autoplay when you bring it into the sequencer. You can also just grab this and drag it over to the sequencer. And so let's see what we've got for our reference video here. Everything looks great. Okay, so notice how I can actually slide out of my playable area. I don't want to be able to do that. So if you go to your playback options and say keep playhead and playback range while scrubbing, that will keep everything. So no matter what you do, it'll stay within the range. In this case, you'll notice it's a little, he's higher than the player. The main reason for that is I want to be able to see it during the entire period that I am animating the character without the character being in the way. So everything looks good there. So now we're going to bring in the pre-roll animation, which is the walk that leads up to this. And so to do that, what I'm going to do, you notice he has a little bit of a walk there before he hops up. So I will bring that animation in. So if we go to our mannequin, let's go ahead and add a control rig, the plus sign, control rig, and select CR mannequin body. As now you'll see we have the control rig controls on it. And if we go down to this CR mannequin body, we can right click and say import anim sequence into this section. And here we can just start typing walk loop forward, and that should find M neutral walk loop forward from the game animation sample. And we'll bring that in, and now you'll notice we have a walk. And so this is a much faster way to bring animations in, vice creating a sequence for them, copying all their keys and doing all that stuff. So it's just a one click and you've got the animation right where you want it. And so we know if you watch the video, So let's do a little video analysis here for a second. So if you watch the video, and I'm going to hit Control 5 just to save that off in case we need to focus on the video in the future. So if we watch the video, he takes off from his left leg. So the end of his walk is right about there, and he starts to bend over, but it's still a walk. So what we want to end up with is the left leg forward. Perfect. So this will be the end of our walk. So we can just go grab the rest of these keys and delete them. And now we have our pre-roll. So he's going to make his roll over an obstacle right about here. So let's add that obstacle. Shapes, cube. We'll go ahead and I'll hold Control and left click so I can drag it closer to me. Hit N to put it down on the ground. And I believe if we look at his spacing, okay, so that's just a little right about there is probably right. Now let's go make sure I'll hit F so I can just rotate around the cube, and I can already see we've just got some, yeah. So we know left to right, we want this to be centered up. So I'm just gonna put that to 0. And then I know scale wise in that dimension, I want to have him just be a little wider. And this is now currently locked. So I'm just going to set this to maybe 0.7 would be my guess. And then obviously we want that back to 1. So let's go take a look at our obstacle here and see how it does. So it's a little wider. Yeah, that's probably going to be just about right. And you have to make sound effects. So this is bunk, bunk, see? Or I mean, yeah, I guess you could choose your own sound effects, but that's just science, what I just said. So I'd go with that one. He's now going to lean down and he's going to jump over this obstacle. So let's save, Control Shift S. And then in addition to that, we're going to find our level sequence in the content browser, which happens by selecting this button right here. And when we click it and hit Control D, that will duplicate it. We then double click this, Control Shift S, and we've now saved a second version. So we have our first version, which is just the pre-roll leading up to it. So if anything goes wrong, that's kind of our backup version that we can go to, and we'll just keep making them as we go. It's kind of an easy way to get a cheap revision control. So as I said, what we're going to do is we're going to start with our body offset control and our root control, and we're going to animate those. And then we'll move on to our body control, and then we're going to start working our way up through from, up the spine to the arms and to the head, neck and head, and then we'll go down through the legs. And we may do the legs first because they're kind of the trunk of the animation, and so it'll be a little more straightforward to show the layered-based workflow. But before we do any of that, the first thing we absolutely have to do is put the character into FK for the entirety of the animation from this moment forward. We'll go find the FK-IK switches, which are in the global control, and we're going to turn them all off. So here we will say no more, no more. And so just confirm that that worked. Yep, we're now in FK. And the reason we do this is putting it into FK means when I move this body control, the entire character is going to go with it. And so I don't have to worry about IK sticking bringing the IK legs around. And I'm going to be doing a lot of rotation since this is a roll vault. He literally rolls on his back to do the vault itself. So this allows me to just change one control and have everything go with it. But if I'm in IK, you notice how the legs don't go with it. Everything looks terrible. But if I'm in FK, the whole body moves with one control. And that's extremely useful when we're doing this layered workflow. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to move him. So he's already moving at a certain speed. Let's just show you the curves editor. We'll open that here. And you notice he's kind of moving at a certain speed. Let's kind of take a look at the video reference and see what it does. He speeds up a little bit actually. So we'll go ahead and move over here and we'll keep animating this control. And the one easy way to do this is to say here he's perfectly level with the thing. And you'll notice he's curving. We know that's probably a fairly linear flow. So if we select this key and hit 4, that'll switch it to linear. And so let's see how that feels. Yeah, we're going to end up probably speeding up and slowing down to match the dynamics of what he's doing, because he speeds up a little bit there, and he really is speeding all the way through here. So that's now at this point he's past. So now let's watch it go. Yeah, good. And so after this, once we're done doing the full animation, then we're going to go back in. We'll go select wherever it's appropriate, and we'll import the walk again so that we can do the post roll so that he can move back into a walk at the end of it. But since we're doing this in a layered fashion, we just really need that initial pose so that we can then work off of that as our basis. So there's the beginning of our, I'm going to mark that with an M, and that's the beginning of where we're going to start doing our animation. Okay, so we're done with the body offset control for now. Now that doesn't mean we're done with it for good. And layered doesn't mean that, hey, you do the body control or the body offset control and then you never revisit it. This is still an iterative process because you may learn things as you're adding on the layers that are best solved by going back to a previous control. But for now, we'll move on to the body control. And so we're just going to walk through the animation, and we will make sure that we're in local because we want to do as few rotations as possible and get this to be as not weird as we can. And we'll go back into world here just to make it a little easier to make sure we're at the right spot. I think we're a little low there, so that looks about right. And again, we don't have to do every single frame, and we're really picking our battles here. We're talking about that body control, we're really like that. Upside down. I know that looks ridiculous, but so, and I think what we notice here is he's actually tilted a little more. So when I had it right here, so we'll come over here and we're actually going to move him back a little bit. Okay, so now we'll move a little further. At this point, what we're noticing is here, let's see how he's sliding too much in space there. So we come here and we're going to bring him back so that his shoulder is right here. And I think we're going to need to come back to center line. I'm really watching my animation details for the X value here. He doesn't have to come back to 0, but we want to, yeah, there we go. All right, and then see we're at this point. We've got a foot on the ground. Probably something like that. Okay, so we have a little bit of a stall there. Sideways. Okay, so here we're actually, so that's the issue. Here we're actually, let's just grab the controls and we'll move them back just to see where we are. So there we go. Okay, we're going to fix that rotation because that's not how we want it. We're going to shape that a little more. It's starting to come over. We still have a little bit of a roll, but I think we're not that, we're essentially, a lot of that lean over is happening due to the hips. So it is the body control that's causing it, but not all of it. So there we go. And then we're still sideways. So we have to make a choice here. Yeah, now he starts to turn back. Okay, so let's just see. Perfect. So we're going to shape this rotation a little better. So we'll go to the body control, and right, so we'll go back and we're looking at predominantly, it's actually a whole bunch of different components here. So we have a pretty nice linear rotation there, which we want to kind of snap it a little faster than that, but we're going to handle the timing separately. So right now we'll deal with the posing, and then we'll come back through and we'll deal with the timing to get that to be a little more dynamic. So really we're done for now with the body control. And so we can either move up the spine or we can deal with the legs. Let's go ahead and deal with the legs because I think we're going to learn this is actually should be down further when we're looking at that body control. Okay. And I think we're probably a little, no, I think we're actually right there. So what we can do, we want to make sure that we're good. We have a good plant on the ground at this point. So we're going to move on to the thigh control. And here's a case where I'm going to go back into IK from here to here. This I want to be IK for the left leg only. And so we'll go ahead and deal with the left leg. Try this out so we can actually read. So we're back in the global control. We're talking about left leg IK. So you notice he was in IK for this whole time, and we actually just switched him to FK right here. So if we go back a frame, you'll see he's in IK. So what we can do instead is just turn that off. So what we want to do, we already have our keys till we get here. So we know, so we'll go ahead and hit S, and that'll set a key there because that's where we want IK to turn off. And if we want to set keys, if we like the posing, which I don't, but if we liked the posing of any of these things leading up to this point, we would set keys here so that when we switch to IK, everything would be just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete that key. That puts us back in IK. So now focusing on this foot, we're going to go and I'll show you kind of the iterative nature of how this works because we know that he's got to go drop down here and I haven't done that yet. See how he's standing up and he's actually bending down right there. So in this case, we need to go back to our body control and we need to go into local space, kind of get a good idea of what our axes are. Yeah, okay, everything's good. So we've got the body control. We're going to go back to before the animation began because we know he's already started to drop down there. And so we're going to drop him down. And I don't want to have to reanimate. You see how he's standing right back up here? So I'm going to actually put him in his final state, which is probably like right about there. He's leaning forward. Bend to his feet. We'll deal with his back foot in a minute here. And he's rotated. His hips have already started to make the turn like this. Yeah, they've opened up a bit. They're actually might have gone completely sideways by that point. There you go. By here, they're completely sideways. So now we're going to go ahead and grab this foot. You know, so we just don't have any keys on it, which is why it's just sliding through space here. So we do know all the way up until this point, the foot's at the same spot. So let's go. There's a couple ways to do this, but the easiest way is just to figure out where it is. So you know he's right at this spot, right, kind of at the tip of that arrow, which the arrow is not going to move. So we can kind of just pick here, bring it back to roughly the spot, knowing that we're going to have to bring it up and roll it. But there's a couple different ways we can do that. And we know we can't see his feet, but for sure his feet have rotated. And then the last thing that we can do is we can just go grab, see this inside of the IK control for the foot, there's this foot roll. There it is, the foot roll control. And so we'll go ahead and bring it up so that that's gonna bend the knee. We know for a fact this is part of the IK foot, so I consider this to be the same control, but we know that we need to, and I'm gonna take this back into world. Terribly wrong here. Oh, because it's down at the ground. So let's put it out far enough so that we can actually get a good, there we go. Get the knee over the, knees over toes, which is just a generally good idea. And let's go see what we've done here. Oh yeah. So that, we're gonna fix this foot slide. I'm not really worried about it right now, but yeah, from a general perspective, that looks a lot better for what that foot would be doing. So now we need to go correct the thigh, because that's what we started with, right? Was the thigh, but we had to go actually do the IK foot for the ground plant time period. And right there. Now I will say, if we had changed over from IK to FK in the right sequence, we wouldn't have to do what I'm doing right now, which is doing all this rotation, because it would have just come straight off of that. So I've made myself just a little bit of extra work here. Let's see what is, yeah, so he's essentially fully straight down. And so I'm gonna make my life a little easier, set my viewport camera hotkeys. All right, and that's gonna, so now I can just very quickly move back and forth between what I'm doing. And the reason for that is I really need to know where his foot is. So now when I go grab the thigh control, which can be a little difficult with every control in the rig in the way. We're almost there, but he would be, there we go. And let's straighten out this. And what I'm trying to do, if you look at, like if we just select this, for example, and you turn on the trails, which you do by going over to trails here, I have it open just to make it easy for me to do this. And now you kind of look at what is happening with his foot. So his foot is now kind of falling backwards. The reason I let it fall backwards is I'm now going to go select this and straighten the leg back out, right? Because we want his leg to leave the ground like that. There we go. And see, that's actually, if you look at how his foot's laid out, that I wasn't watching the reference at all when I did this. I was just doing what I thought made physical sense for what would happen when you launch off the ground there like that. So yeah, so now we have a good leg going all the way through. This is that same in the straight ahead work for the pose to pose workflow. You'll also see, you know, you're looking at the reference and trying to figure out where your golden poses need to be. The same is true here. You want to pick where you think things have changed enough that the interpolation's not going to be able to do exactly what you want out of it straight away. So now we're going to go back to this thigh, and you'll notice I am, like I said, I'm posing the leg. So the thigh, the knee, and the ankle, I'm posing all three of those as one control, because I think of that as a, you know, each appendage as like a single unit unto itself. Whereas in a, you know, if we were being completely rigid in the concept of the layered workflow, then we might be more forced to just do the thigh and then just do the knee and then just do it. But that doesn't seem terribly efficient to me. So I tend to think more in terms of this. So, okay, so I'm already seeing that we might have an issue where the hips are actually higher off the platform than I thought they were. Let me kind of get a better feel for it. It's totally, by the way, this pose, perfect. I really should change nothing. It looks fantastic. Oh, by the way, this workflow is significantly more hilarious than any other workflow you've probably seen, but the results end up being pretty darn good, in my opinion. And it gets you thinking in terms of what each body part is doing and the interconnectedness, like how does each body part affect the others? And sometimes you'll notice we get out of sync with the video. If you just change frames and go back, that'll usually fix itself. One thing I am going to do, I'm going to completely leave the ankles until the end, because it's really just the knees and the thighs that I have to get right here. So I'm looking at, he's very linearly rotating. So I don't like the way, I think he gets up to a more bent knee faster than it's going here. So what I'll do is I can just open up the tweens and I can just make a key and I can create the ease for myself. So let's look at that. So that's going to look a little more dynamic. So we'll go back to our thigh here. So here he's starting to open up his knee a little bit more, but the knee is more bent. So I need to look at where I've made keys in the past, because do I want my knee to be a little more bent right here? Possibly so. And then as I go, I think I want it to be very bent. Yeah, we're gonna have to fix that arc. We're gonna, essentially, we want his legs to speed up through the arc. You see how linear that is? Okay, and so we're gonna start turning his leg back in as he goes and grab the thigh. But it's also coming down. And I think I opened, but I think it's just actually more that. Let's go ahead and let's watch that through the event. That looks right. Okay, so he's already straight by here. So let's go ahead and key it. So let's go ahead and straighten that leg out. So we're going to do our usual deal here. Control 1, Control 2. And we know this is this is 0 right here. So that's where he's really trying to land his foot if he can. We'll go back to 1. Bring this down, go to 2 because might be a little more forward than that. And at this point, we also know that his leg is straight. So we'll go back to 1. That is a little too straight. And you can see he started to open up his, this is going to change some things, but he's starting to open up his leg. So we rotate the thigh to get the foot to plant properly. All right, now let's see where we are. Okay, so that does not look good. Let's get rid of this and see. Looking at this left leg, you see how it straightens out? If you watch, I didn't do his body control right. I finished off the rotation on that body control. So if we look, that's going to be that green dimension right there. So we can just go ahead and go. And he's really finished at this point. But if you watch the actual body, he's still very much turning at that point. So I think we have to figure out, yeah, he's already over rotated at this point. So that's the challenge, is he went too far. He hasn't finished. So we need to slow him down during this part. We say we want to slow him down, so we're going to bring him out a little bit more. So he should already be on the ground at that point. And then straightened up. Go ahead and correct that a little bit. And so he's floating, which means we need to bring him down physically. So if we look at this, we look at what's happening here is he goes just level, and he's actually still dropping at this point. So we want to go ahead and let him keep coming down. And let's go look at, yeah. So in this case, he's going to end up, once he gets back on his feet right about there, he's going to end up back in the air. But he's even still not there yet. So if we assume that that's right, yeah, so this is the issue. We need to keep going lower here. He's going to have to go even lower, actually. Maybe not that deep. At his lowest point, probably about right, and then have him pop back up. All right, so there we go. Watch it again. Always good idea to get the strategic view of what's happening. Okay. I'm going to end up fixing that leg. But yeah, so he would already be leg at the ground and planted at that point. So let's go ahead and solve that problem. If you're having trouble grabbing it, you can grab what that's easy, and that'll be right next to it. So you have the calf, and you just go grab the thigh right next to it. Also, using pickers is very encouraged. So I'm going to come back one where I had fixed it, and I'm going to put his leg down to the ground. We will figure out. And what I'll actually do right at this moment is, since I've keyed it, and I'll key everything in the whole rig, now we can put it back into FK. See, now there's still something. Oh, I think we have residual roll. So look at the foot roll control. Here, we'll go back. If we just type roll here, we'll find it easier this way. This one. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So foot roll was taken and it needs to be brought back. So what I typically do is I will, and if you notice, it's really just the roll rotation, which is this one. If we just go take a look, he was at 0. He then rolls out to 44 degrees. So really what we want to do is just take him back to 0. So you can just select this key right here, set it to 0, and we'll just do it. So the easiest way to do this, if you hold Control and Shift, and then click and drag, it'll just keep, if you start moving to the left, it'll keep it left, right, and it won't move up and down. And so really it doesn't matter when we do this, but now when we hop back into this, yep, his foot is now rolled properly. So everything is back to normal. And the way I could tell that the foot roll was the issue was this red ball was not inside of the IK control. So let's go figure out where we switched right there. So that's the moment where we say we're probably going to want to be there. And the other one will already be, once we do the right foot, we'll get there quite quickly. So we know that's where we want to be. And let's go see why. Actually, we want to be using this control. We can only get to it if we do that. And there's our IK control. And yeah, so he's just allowed to free spin. So let's go ahead and grab this. And I believe in the next frame, his foot will be planted. And so, yeah. So if you know you're going to be foot planted at this point, which we really are, so the foot's going to be planted there, you just grab the IK control and zeroize the rotations. Everything. So roll is going to do the forward, like essentially if you bring your toes up and down, leaving your ankle in the same place. And the green is essentially the roll control. It's going to go right to left. So rotating your foot around the ankle. And then this is the yaw, which is just controls this dimension. So we want to leave that alone. We're probably going to end up tweaking it, but we want to leave that alone for the most part. And then one handy thing about this, if we go to the Z and we just hit 0, typically that's going to, if everything is set up properly, that should just plant the foot. They made this control rig perfect in that zeroizing the IK control puts the foot on the ground. And so that's fantastic. So, all right, so now we've got our foot in place and we just need to fix. So let's take one last look at the left leg to see if it's, yeah. Because I think once we have all the appendages and everything lined up right, how we deal with this exit is going to be crucial because we may end up moving this foot more to the left. It's going to be based on what our post-roll walk looks like and where we want that foot to end up. Okay. So we'll move on to our right leg. So this is going just a little, make sure we're in local. We don't necessarily need to, he really even doesn't need to be rotating that much at this point. Probably that. Yeah, that looks good. Now, the one thing we're adjusting, you'll notice his feet are actually a little closer together than we have here because we were on a full, it's a just different speed of a walk. But since I want to line this up with the game animation sample and have it work at a walking pace for GASP, I'm having to make some adjustments to make it line up in that way. Excellent. So there we go. Okay, so you see his, even by here, like right about there, we're probably in a good spot for this. So I'm going to make a key. And then by the time we get here, his knee is already bent. And I think that twist is happening from the hips. Part of it is the camera's slightly higher than the character, so the reference has it, but I want to go ahead and just start bringing that around. Yeah, we're going to end up. At this point, his knee is already, or his thigh, sorry, is already in like that. And I think it's a little more, it's really that line of action with his left side of his torso all the way up through. Yeah, there we go. Now we look at the knees, they kind of form a frame with his shoulders. So we could bring this knee up so that it produces that better frame. And I like crunching the body tighter because that's, if you are super stretched out here, I already see some things I want to fix, but if you're super stretched out here, yeah, we're going to have to fix that. The right leg doesn't come off the ground in a natural way. See how you can see it rotating right there. In any event, I like compressing like the body more than this is compressed because it's going to look better from if he's unarmed, it's going to look better because it's going to the character will ball up for the maneuver and then stretch back out, and it just ends up looking a lot more dynamic. But if they're holding a two-handed weapon, which is what we're going to, I'll have a future tutorial where I show you how to modify this to put a weapon in the character's hands, and so they can just roll right over an obstacle without having to put the weapon away. This will, or I might do it with a box, or, just holding any kind of item. Knees need to be down a little bit more to make space, make room for the item that's being held. And so I'll show how to adjust for that and do it. But if the character is unarmed, we actually want them to compress, not into a, not knees on the chest, but we want the knees to get a little bit closer than they are here because we want a nice ball. Just to remind everyone, we're really focused on this leg. Bring that out a little bit, but also we've got the knee needs to be compressed more. And let's press 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. And by the way, you see how he's making this. I'm really just focused on that angle right there. So when I go back to 2, and I don't want symmetry, so I'm letting this break a little bit, but I could even come back just a little bit more. And that does tell me this leg might be compressed a little more than the reference, but that's also okay. All right. So remember, we got to move this around to get the... Okay, so he's already opening up that leg to try to be ready. And then he's going to straighten it out very quickly here. So it's already straight at this point, reaching the ground. So it's reaching for the ground. So we're going to stretch that out like that. We will straighten out this knee. Sometimes you don't grab the right. I'm going to go ahead and turn off these because I don't really think the trails are doing us any good right now. There we go. Just nice and straight. And we look at the angle. Where's he going to actually land? Boom. Excellent. So right about here, we have to look for how far off the ground are we, because we don't want to go into... Okay, I think since he's already straightening out here, now we're going to need to straighten out that leg. Yep. Like this. Let's go ahead and put that leg on the ground. So he's about to land. Yeah, and frankly, so we're going to key the whole rig right here. And if you don't want to do all the scrolling, just go up to the top, key the whole rig. And then now we're going to put the right leg into IK. Now, it's important to note, I see a key. You can see it out here. There's another keyframe out here that's probably going to put it back into FK because that's how we had it. So what you can do in that case here is you can do it over here, or we can just do it directly in here. So if I do leg right, yep, there it is. So you can see it go back. We want to keep it in IK for the rest of the animation. So that's all we have to do is just delete that key. Oh yeah, that's really good. So now the main problem we have is the IK kind of goes off to the races. So we're going to just delete all that and let it just slide through space until we're ready to do something about it. All right, looks like he's doing a hockey stop. All right. So now we don't really have good view of his feet, but if we look at his knee, that will tell us exactly what we need to know here. Let's go find it. Right there. You see his knee, he's straight out. His knee's actually pointed in, kind of like pigeon toe. So that implies like his foot is probably pretty much orthogonal, like completely sideways, facing the X direction is probably what his foot's doing right now. So we're kind of there. Yeah, that's kind of how it's landing anyway. Although what you'll notice here is the knee in the reference is actually pointed out here like this. But I think probably a more straight ahead. That may need to come in a bit, but it's not going to need to come in as much as what it is in the reference. I don't think the reference is going to be a good, it's the appearance of it's just not going to be right. So what we know is immediately after doing that, at least by here, this foot is planted. And so the question is, do we want to roll it onto the ground or do we want to just let it? So I'll just show you. If we oops, not that. If we zeroize the rotations, not the locations, and then we zeroize the Z location, that's going to show us, is that the foot plant that we're looking for? That's not like a terribly, that's a bit less natural than maybe something like this, right? Which that I think will actually look a little better. I don't think I want to let it slide too much. So here, let's try it without letting it slide at all. We'll just leave this here. We'll go to world. We'll just slide him back. It's not exact, but should get the job done. So then here, I think we stay at the prior location, but this time now we allow it to flatten out. So we zeroize. And we take a look, we clearly have something happened here with regards to the roll. So we're non-zero. So let's go fix it. There we go. So we again have a flat foot. In fact, I don't know why we didn't have a flat foot the whole time. We'll work on the ball controller right here, the football controller, as in ball of your feet, right? It's at the base of your toes. We'll work on that controller independently. Okay, so he goes in, presses. Yeah, so that's not it's not the cleanest foot strike I've ever animated, but it'll get the job done. And so so now that we've, just like we said with the other one, I really think I just want to leave this alone. So we'll grab this. We should have just put him in world space, but I'm trying to keep the animation as clean as possible. So what I'm going to have to do instead is just animate out the So I think what I did wrong was these need to be linear. There you go. Okay, so that at least. And here, we're going to go ahead and just take this back in so we don't see the part that doesn't look good. And that jitter you're seeing, I'm not worried about that at all because I'm still blocking out this animation. We're going to go back through polish. We'll do the hand posing. We'll get everything just right. We'll tweak all of the poses once we're done here to get it into its final form, to get it to be as dynamic as possible. We'll go back. Really, right now, we're focused on roughing out the entirety of the animation across all the controls, and then we'll take a pass back through and refine that, and then refine it further. And each pass we make, we're more and more focused on the acting, the actual movements, the dynamicness of it, the how it makes you feel. All right, actually, we're starting to get an animation. I mean, his arms might be not as involved as we'd hope, but it's starting to really look physical and it's starting to look good. So let's go ahead and do the spine because I think that's going to bring this animation along quite a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and save, and I'll do my Control D to make a new one. Save that, double click it, open it, and now I'm in the next one. Now we'll do the spine controls. So let's go ahead and get into it. So we can already see by frame 28, he's already bending his back. He's already starting to lean over. So right about there. So we'll call him straight up by here because we don't want to take as long. Here, if you watch it in real time, you see he has, yeah, it's a pretty fast evolution actually. So we'll probably match the reference here pretty closely. The back will be straight right here. So I'm going to go ahead and start working with the spine controls. So there's spine 2. I tend to do a lot of my work with spine 3, spine 1 and spine 3 more than spine 2, but it's good for you to go through this rig and kind of get a feel for, see that, like that's a nice lower back rotation right there. And then I find this one is fine, but it doesn't do too much different visually than that. Whereas this one, see, then that gives me that nice chest rotation that I want. So I'm typically a spine 1, spine 3, and I don't really animate spine 2 very much. And the closer you can get to what you're after with the least number of controls you can modify is a much better, it's a much simpler animation, much easier to modify in the future. And it ends up just being cleaner. Because if you imagine, the more that you tweak and tune, the more you customize, the harder it's going to be to clean that, to make it all smooth and to understand how the controls work with each other. So and by the way, if you look down, I have spine selected. He's got a lot going on here because he was just in the middle of a walk. So I'm going to go ahead and look. We're doing the red. Red is roll. So we know we want to be starting to prep. So there you go. So he's got a pretty big, and if you just hit F, here we know we want to, by here. So we'll go ahead and delete stuff in the middle. So I can already see that I don't want him to have done very much at this point. So we're here. I think we came up a little too high there. Yeah, there's a little bit of we're not moving enough in lateral space. Yeah, he kind of stalls right there. But yeah, right there. He's not doing enough forward backward motion as part of this, but now we know we have a fully bent. So let's, again, we'll control 1. Oops. Control 2. So now we'll go back to 1, go to 2, and we're looking at this over here. We know that's not ideal. So we'll go back to animation mode because I accidentally hit Shift 1, which takes you to selection mode. And I'll hit G to turn my controls back on because they get turned off when you leave animation mode. And all right, I think now, like I said, I sometimes treat these controls as the whole spine is one control, just like I treat the full leg as a single control. So I'm going to go ahead and finish what we started here, which is that. And we already see that we've got some work to do. Let's go ahead and march our way back. At this point, he's still got a little bit. Let's see where we are. Yeah, we're going to want to turn this body control when we get around to it, but right now we'll just take a look. Now we have to look. His head is forward, but that's going to happen with the neck, not with the chest control. So I really think we've taken that. And let's just get a feel. We'll roll it back. We'll roll this back to the beginning and we'll see kind of where we are. Okay, so we really can just. Yeah. So yeah, what I'm seeing is there's a little stall. And if we just pick on whichever control we like, I don't think that one's going to actually update, but we can try it and see. Yeah, okay. So if you look, there's it's this foot. Let's go grab this. Yeah, you can see it. See the hitch right there. So you notice it gets slower. So these green hashes are the show marks on the trails. So I typically turn off the keys and turn off the frame number, and I just show hashes. That shows every single frame because I've lock marks to the frames. Otherwise, it'll just show them on the keys. And so when I go look through this, what I see is I should have a nice smooth arc. I shouldn't have this corner that happens right there. And I should have nice even spacing if I'm doing a somersault or a side roll. But what happens instead is I get that hitch right there, and that's what I saw. So if you watch it, yeah, you'll see it just something doesn't look, it just slows down a little bit. It's almost like it hits a wall right here before it moves on. So we'll go fix that. That we will fix in the polish phase. But already, even just with the spine, I haven't done the arms yet or the head. And just with the spine alone, we now really have what looks like a pretty decent side roll. It's missing some dynamics. Like obviously we want him to roll into, you'll notice he's going a little high in the air at the beginning. And so we're going to match that up to the obstacle a little better. But we'll have him roll off the obstacle a little better. So those are the types of things we're going to tweak with the body control and get that nice and smooth so that, because what we're really looking for, his shoulders should be flat on the ground, and we can fix this in a moment, but his shoulders should be flat on the ground, and it should just be a nice, clean, no slide roll from his left shoulder across the back to the right shoulder, and then the right upper arm. And you notice how we have sliding, he's moving into the ground. There's just a bunch of stuff we got to fix right there. And then if we fix that, it's going to look really, it's going to feel really connected. It's going to lose its floaty nature that you see right now. And then we can keep going. But first, I've got to get everything posed the way that I like it. I'm actually happy with, I think the, no, it's not the chest. I think it's actually the spine one that we're going to want to modify to get him more horizontal. So I just grabbed the hips, which we'll deal with the hips last. They have a pretty big impact on how the end animation looks, but it's one that I think they're hard to, it can be quite hard to adjust. So we know we want to be still bent over. And I'm not sure, is that right? Yeah, we're going to let him do that. He does a nice smooth move to standing. So see how he's still in the reference. He's like this. And if we leave it like that, we just need to get rid of this spot right there. Hit F so we can see the whole thing, how it goes. We probably don't need quite as much right there because he's starting to get up. So we want to let that actually occur. All right, so let's take a look. So I think lower body and legs are starting to look really good. The body control, obviously the body control and the forward backward need some work, but yeah, we're starting to get there. So before we do this, we're going to take another quick pass. So I'm going to make another version. We'll take another quick pass at fixing the body control so we can get that just right. So he's already way too high there. Okay, so we'll go grab our body control. So I grabbed the spine on accident. So we reach in and grab the body. And then so we're watching the main Z. And here, I'll just show you. If you watch as we move up and down, you see it's only changing one. So the body control is in world space already. So we'll just go grab. We'll put that where we want it to be. He ends up here. We know that that's actually right about there. And I'm just working up and down right now. So I'm working vertically. And then once that's done, I'll get the horizontal motion just right. But right now I want to focus on, yeah, that looks right. And in this case, actually, you can use G and then just move these up and down so that you can get a better view. G will turn off the controls temporarily, and G again to toggle it. Yeah, we have a little sliding right there. So now the question is, do I go up? Yeah, up seems to be okay there. So he's kind of fallen off a cliff, so we'll go ahead and let that happen. Well, it's already looking better. Okay, so now we'll fix that little slide. See right there? Right there. So now we'll go to Y. Right there. So now he's got a problem where, so we're there. Let's see if that did it. Okay, so we got to now do it again. And so this is a case where I think we want to just take the entire body control and we want to shift that out entirely. But first, let's just try to fix this last one and see if that gets it done. Okay, so now when you look at this zoomed out, we haven't fixed the head, we haven't fixed the clavicles, we haven't, which is the shoulder blades moving them up and down. We haven't done the arms at all, but even still, that is a pretty decent looking animation. And what you may notice, instead of the standing precision jump, which came out looking rather robotic and has a lot of work to do with overshoot and with making the animation more fluid, part of the layered workflow where you focus on each independent body part is, unlike the pose to pose workflow, you're not going to always be moving. See how the legs are moving independently of the torso, which are moving independently of the body control. All those kinds of things that are dragging each other and they're just independently moving, it makes it look more organic and things tend to flow a little better. So this is a good workflow for getting nice independent body movement, so it doesn't just look like a robot doing a concerted action. All we have left is the arms and the neck and head, and then we'll be done with this tutorial, and the next tutorial we'll focus on the polish. So we'll go ahead and do neck and head because that's probably going to actually go faster. So we're going to go ahead and I like to work in the local space. So I'm thinking we probably want to, so we'll level that back off. I'm just taking a quick pass. Okay, so we have some work to do to clean that up. So let's go ahead and see, has he tucked his head at this point? No. But we'll just get it part way there. Go ahead and keep having him kind of point towards his destination until he gets there. So it's kind of hard with all the geometry and everything, so I'm going to take a look at it without. Okay, so there's a discontinuity there that we got to deal with. So turn it all back on, select the head again, and figure out what's going on there. This is not the head. Okay, so that's the issue. So he makes the big discontinuity there. Really, I'm just going to hit S to make a key here, so I can then just get rid of this one and get it like a slightly smoother. Beautiful. All right, I think that actually is going to solve the problem. So let's go ahead and just watch it go. All right, so his head is kind of doing a bobblehead stuff right there. Okay, so his head, as he gets to over here, right about here, his head goes back before coming back down. So I think that's part of the problem. Let's go take a look here. I'm just going to soften these curves because there's just no reason for them to be so abrupt. There we go. Okay, so we have some neck work that we clearly have to do to fix this finally. And also he should really be, his chest should be coming back up by now. So we're going to look at the spine control. We know we're mostly dealing with the roll rotation right there. And let's just see if we can get a nice smooth stand back up. Okay, that's much more natural. All right, his head does a little bit of a drag that I think we could avoid. So if we arc track this, actually, if we just actually track the top of the head, you're going to see, yeah, right there. So here's the spot where he's kind of all over the place. And part of it makes sense, and we might just have to, we'll have to work on smoothing that out in the polish phase. But I also have some neck stuff to fix because he is a bit head forward. So we'll see which one is the right one to fix it. I don't think it's that one. I think it's this one. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So, all right, so let's see if we want him. And I don't know that we need. So if we move it forward, I don't think that's what, if anything, we're going to actually tuck the head further like this. If we wanted to get more extreme with the rotation. And what I would say is, what I'll do here is so if you hit Control W, that's going to change it to weighted tangents. And you can then change the shape like this so that it stays for a longer period. There we go. And then by this point, he should be, and then he's going to tilt his head back up, tilt it towards target, and everything should be right. All right, good. Okay, he's whipping his head around a little bit. You can see it very clearly in this one. Right there, where I think what we need is, we need his head to be focused a little more like that, which means we're probably going to want to do this. Oops. And we will probably smooth out all of these. Like, let's just go see what it looks like when it's smooth, or at least smoother. And then there's just the last one, which is the pitch. We want them kind of focused back over here. Let's see if we can smooth this out just a little bit. There you go. So I think he's still dragging his jaw a little bit. Like, he's not, like, it's probably more like he should be already pointed forward with his head. And I would say if his chest is still this bent, then we need to go back to his neck control. It's really neck 1. Neck 2 is probably the one. No, it's neck 1. I'll go back. You know, he's probably going to be a little more neck forward at that point. Just because he's bent over, so keeping his neck perfectly straight posture just doesn't make a lot of sense. So here, see what I mean? Like, that's just probably a more natural way. He's coming back off of a roll. And we might be able to bring it back a little bit. There we go. Get it a little less like he broke his neck. There we go. That's what it is. There's a discontinuity right here in the body control. No, we definitely want that to stay where it is as he straightens out, but there's something else. I think it's in. Let's go ahead and just let that. I feel like there's still, yep, okay. Oops. So let's just zoom in here a little bit more and let's let this smooth out. It's probably not the only control that we have to fix. Now let's go turn on just the body control. Okay. So then next things, let's go look and we'll see, yeah, we have a pretty serious discontinuity in the head right there. But I think it's not being caused. So you notice that there's no sudden changes. So if I just select these and hit F, I can just take a look. There's really no sudden changes during this time period that are causing that in the head. So it means it's being driven by one of the chest. It's either this guy. And so once again, it's right there. So we can go look and see which control has a discontinuity at that time period. So it's not the body. And so it's not spine 3. So we can go check spine 2. There's really no discontinuities there. And then we'll go check spine 1. And there's nothing to speak of. Oh, okay. So it actually doesn't look too bad. So now we have everything but the arms done. So let's go animate the arms. And we're going back to the reference for this one because we're going to do the unarmed version first. Obviously, then we'll, in a future tutorial, I'll show you how to add a weapon or whatever, a box, whatever you happen to be holding. Okay, so at this point, he's already moved his arms forward. So let's go take a look. So we've got nice, clean, clear slate right here for this. So we can go ahead and just bring, and his hand is still facing down like this. It might be actually a little more bent, but let's just see how this looks right now. So I have a couple options. Like first option, and if you ever want to try something out, you shouldn't be worried about doing it. So you can click and we can select, just hit Control A. Once you select the upper arm, for example, I'll just hit Control A, right click, and buffer 10 curves. Now we have everything saved. So when I go change these curves, for example, say I want to do a nice smooth transition here. There actually isn't too much to it. Yeah, so that didn't hurt anything. Okay, so I'm seeing some drift happening in the X dimension of the X direction, sorry, of the body controller that we need to fix real quick. So this should be here. Got some more sliding happening there. Oh. Yeah, there we go. Now I know I said I do the arm all at once, but in this case, I'm just doing the shoulder and then I'll go get the elbow. And there are often times, like we're getting towards the end, so you're going to see me bouncing back and forth between the body control just to try to get everything exactly right. I typically go in world space, but I'm going to do it in this case. And so by the time we get from here to here, he's going to be trying to decide how I want to do this. I could bring his arm up a little bit more, which will allow me to curl it around. When I get to the elbow portion, I'll bend it around the leg there so that we can get a nice compression on the body. Yeah, so he'll be holding the knee effectively here. And then here, by the time we get here, let's go make sure we have some keyframes. So he's kind of fine at that point. By the time we get here, he's going to be up and pointed out like that. I'm going to take a quick look at the arc tracking for the wrist. Yeah, that's actually not bad. Okay, so now we'll fix the elbow. And I may bend it stylistically. It may make more sense to get him. Let's see here. More like this to lead into the compression. But for right now, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to leave that completely alone. And we'll actually start to bend. We'll start bending the elbow there, which means I need to, before I bend the elbow, I need to make sure it's straight when it needs to be straight. And then we'll start bending right there. So I'm going to have to counter rotate the controls. So, but for now, let's just watch and see what happened there. So he curves in and then rolls right back out. So let's go take a look at where we want this to be. So at this point, we'd be more tilted in. And actually, so at this point, what we'll do is we'll grab the shoulder and we'll pull it out so that we can get a better bend here. And we're going to curl the hand the wrist rather. And then go right back out. Cool. So the other thing we could do is we could actually tuck. So as it comes around, we could actually even tuck further in, tuck the arm down further. So let's do that, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So in this case, we could just bring the arm down further, which is actually going to cause it to, yeah, it'll look like it's pulling it into the rotation. So that's a good thing. We're going to have to end up fixing that because he kind of has a hitch now. So we'll leave it. I think we can actually bring it down more and then bring that up. Just put it around right there. We don't want any mesh penetration, but and it starts to separate and then comes down naturally. Bam. So let's go ahead and start. We'll grab his wrist and we know everything's good here. Does it go through his knee? Looks like we might have a, it's because his arm is bending too soon. No, let's go find. There we go. That's actually not bad. We'll have to really look at this at speed to make sure everything looks how we like. But now we can, now that we have his hand is here, there, and so now we'll, and actually I think by there we want to have it starting to curl. So let's come back a little bit. And then by here, we will start to curl the hand. Really, we're just trying to convert this guy into a ball. There we go. We're back out. And everything looks good, but I'm just gonna straighten everything out a little bit. All right, so let's take a look. Yeah. So now we can go fix the left arm. Yeah, we kind of want it to roll straight up. And since I don't have arc ball turned on, we're going to do it this way. Yeah, wonderful. So it's going a little faster than I'd like, but it's actually not that bad. He's leading the way. This arm is kind of cutting through the air, but we don't want it to get ahead. Like we don't want anything like that. We're going to need to fix that with the clavicle. And we might have I think he might have come up in the first place, but what I will say is, so the clavicle, we have some platform penetration here that we can solve in one of a couple different ways. One of the ways is we can go grab the clavicle and we can bring that up, because that also is exactly what would happen as he's laying there. It's going to compress his clavicle quite temporarily though. So let me first, probably in good shape there. And by the time we get here, he has a fully compressed clavicle. And then by the time he pops out of here, it's probably fully back, probably somewhere like that. And then he's back. Here, it's just he's taking the full weight of his body on that one spot. Whereas back here, he does have his whole back is already on the platform. So it has a lot more support that may not collapse the clavicle, but there it's kind of taking the whole thing. But it's also going to cause a slightly more dynamic movement out of it too. And so now we need to go finish off the right arm here. So we've done the shoulder, and I think, yeah, the shoulder's actually in. What I'd like to do is kind of have it drag at the end of this, even though that's not what's happening in the animation, but we'll deal with that when we get to it. So let's go back here and let's go figure out what we want to do. Well, One thing that we can do, if we go look at how this is rotated, is we can straighten this out a fair amount. Straight arm, if that's what we're looking for. What I want is something a little more like this. Fairly straight, straighter than that, I'd say. We're gonna need to, okay, so so his arm is more like this maybe at this point. Yeah, so that feels a little robotic to me. So I think part of me doesn't like, here, let me just take a look at what happens when his arm is bent properly. So I could actually bring his arms down. We got some options here. So let's drag his shoulder. We're gonna, it's not gonna go as, there it is. So let's do this. We're gonna use his shoulder to make the movement more dynamic and dramatic. So we'll leave it down here and then we'll snap it. So we'll let this get a little more smooth. And we're actually going to speed this guy up a little more. We'll get him to that point a little faster, which is called an ease. And so I'll show you, we go to the tweens and we just make a key right here and we make him get to his final destination faster. Yeah, so that's already broken up some of the linearity. There's still a little more to do there. And remember, I'm really just focused on that right arm, making sure it is behaving itself. Yeah. So let's go take a look. We've got polishing to do. We have some arc tracking to do. We got to fix that little wobble that happens right there, although it's not too bad. Side. Looking good. Yeah. So it's actually so now the last piece of the animation we'll be putting in the post roll and blending it back out to a walk, which we'll do next. Adding the post roll is going to be fairly straightforward as well. And it looks like we do still also have to bring the root along for the ride. So before we do that, let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and fix the root controller. So if we go grab, actually, we know the issue is entirely in the location Y. So we just grab every key, Control C, and then just go up one to the root control, go to location Y, Control A, delete it, go back to the 0 frame, Control V. We should now have a root that perfectly follows. Yep, and see now the arrow, when I'm saying root control, I mean this little arrow right here. That's actually what defines where the root of your skeleton animates. And so that's root motion, literally. Okay, so now let's go add the post roll. Let's add the transition out to walk again. And first thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and drag out enough room for that to occur. I'm gonna go ahead and just select a controller so I can see where my animation ends. It's happening somewhere around here. So I'll just go ahead and, oh yeah, that gets real nice. So somewhere around here, and then just come over to the body. You could just anywhere that's in the control rig, just right click and say import anim sequence into this section, and then walk, loop forward, neutral walk, loop forward, doink. And you'll notice the character jumps all the way back. We can just fix that real quick. If we just go grab the location Y of the root control and of the body offset control, we can just go drag them. There's a couple different ways we can do this, but the easiest way is just drag them up like that. And so now we need to go pick our moment. So we know we're going to be in a left-hand walk at this point. So we'll probably start there. So let's go ahead and select the entire rig. And this, I'll hit a mark. That's the jumping in point. So we'll delete all the keys before that moment. Then we will go figure out what's going on here. The last moment we're really actually animating is right about there maybe. And so let's delete everybody. I don't think we want to delete that key because that is the linear motion of the root motion controller. Yeah, so we're gonna have to fix the Y location again, of course, but let's go ahead and just go grab everything. Control Shift, middle click and drag to the left. We know we have some work to do, that's for sure. So like, for example, we'll go grab our root location Y and our body offset root location Y. And we know that we select all of these keys, and immediately we know we need to bring them down so that they're kind of in line. And there might be a little hitch, a little slowdown there. Let's see if that looks natural. Yeah, so that's not ideal. So we're gonna go ahead and just zoom in a little bit and see that we have a slight slope change. So I'm just gonna drag up just a little bit. There we go. And so now we'll want to do a blend. And I actually think I want to move them back. Yeah, that's what I want to do. Here's the first frame. I think I want to move them all to the left, but I also want to move them down so that if you look at where he was at the last, where he puts his foot down, right there, I want to move all of these. So I still have both the root control Y and the body offset control location Y. And so I want to just go select all those keys. Let's just make sure we got them all. And I want to bring that. So if you just look, it's this line right here is where his foot is kind of just right over that line. So now let's go over here, right? We'll go over here and we'll Control Shift, middle click and drag down until his foot's just over that line. Yeah, that'll be good. And now what we can do is go select the entire rig again, because we need all the keys. And we'll go zoom out, grab these. And we know our whole point is that we have to come over. Okay, so we grabbed too many. Yeah, that's not gonna work. We've got too much chance of missing. So we're gonna go grab up to here. And I think that might have gotten the right amount. Yep, that got everybody. And then we're just gonna shift them over 2 frames. So this is all about doing a little work up front to avoid, yeah, there we go. So that feels right. So we're gonna have a little bit of drag. We're gonna wanna ease our way into it. Beautiful. All right. So now our job is just blending the components. So let's go take a look and we'll see if there's a hiccup here. There actually isn't much of one. If anything, it's very small, but there's really maybe we could fix so when we know our changeover moment happens right here. And so we could just blend it. So I'll just put a mark here at frame 70, knowing that's where our transition occurs. And one thing that we can probably do with this control is just blend it nice and easily. Okay. And then we just go do this for every control, right? You can see there's a weird, the right leg is behaving weirdly. The left leg weirdly is just sliding a little bit, which we can probably fix pretty easily. And now we'll go work to figure out how we get this rotation of the body to look a little more natural than that, because he's kind of just looks like a robot rotating to the left and keep walking. But first we'll go smooth out all the other things, and then we'll add in a little bit of drag in the arms, and we'll get the head to kind of lead the motion, arms to trail it, and we'll get the body to come behind the head and pull the arms along with them. All right, so it's really this shift that I think we need to work our way into a little better. So we know while we're here, we don't really want to be there. So go to our tweens and we'll just bring that back, create an ease. Yeah, and then so for this one, actually, I think what we'll do is just give it a little more time to blend. So we just delete those keys. Let's just see how that looks. It's still turning a little too fast. So I think we'll actually just bring these over even more. Yeah, that is actually going to look a little more natural. I'm going to go even further when I start pushing the poses, but right now it's just about getting everything to blend. So let's make sure we have our foot IK control selected, and we can go look in. It's really no mystery about the moment when things go weird. Okay, so we're going to get rid of all that right there. And we can do it a very similar way. This is where we want it to stay. So if we come back over here, we should be able to just bring it back to where it was. It's probably going to slide a bit. So really what we'll do is we'll take this. Again, we may have an issue where we have to, I'm going to go to world space. We may have an issue where we may have to turn something linear to stop the motion, but yeah, so now we need to blend it a little more. Okay, so now we have see how it just snaps into that right there. So let's go take a look. Yeah, we have a pretty severe thing. So let's just do this. We'll smooth that out a bit. And I'm actually probably going to ease it just a little bit so it drags. And actually what I can do, mostly concerned with that right there. Okay. He's getting back to his walk just a little too, just a little too straight ahead. But first we're just going to make this ease go, and then we're going to adjust the walk. All right, so we'll just go walk through. Yeah, there's some foot sliding we're going to have to address. Now we'll just walk through the rig. So we'll look at the hips. And we're looking around this moment if we think, yeah, there's nothing really there. And certainly I believe the body control is fairly, we already did this one. So one thing I will say is we're going to really want to bring this down. And we're going to rotate it. As he rotates right there, we know we'll want to be. Then it just snaps to a little too fast. So we know at this point he's probably still going to just be slightly still like that. And so we'll delete everything leading up until that moment. We'll do this so you can see it a little better. Hit F. And yeah, you just see that nice little pop. So let's smooth all that out, and then we'll smooth it out on the other side of him as well. Yeah, we got some head work to do, but at least now there's a slight spring. We're gonna have to put more compensation there as he comes down. Yeah, let's go fix the head, since it's sometimes this is just the next thing that's very obviously wrong. So we'll go fix this real quick. First, when in doubt, just always try a nice smooth ease. Like there's a little divot right there, but you can see the jank. But that's not the head. That's something else causing it. Okay, not bad. And now we'll go from the head to we can take a look at the clavicles. I don't think there's going to be a big, there's nothing. The clavicles were already set in a neutral pose. Everything looks good there. The neck, on the other hand, I'm guessing is going to be where we're having most of our problems. And sure enough, I'm not entirely sure why. I'm just wondering if we can just delete this discontinuity here. Okay. Not entirely sure that's, so let's check neck 2. Oh, yeah, okay. So we have another problem here. So we've got this. Okay, so he's whipping his head around a little unnaturally. See that? It's just so quickly coming towards, and so I think is to track the head a little more. We want him to be looking at his destination faster. Let's go get the chest controls. We'll get everything. Yeah, well, that can't be good. There we go. Yeah, that's much better. So it was actually the chest control was what was doing, the spine 3 was doing a lot of the heavy lifting on making that look janky. And my guess is we're gonna want a slightly slower ease on this specific one right here. Ooh, that might be too much. I might have gone too, oh, so yeah, so let's see. This is a good, well, it's not bad. He just whips around and he's already into a walk, so we're gonna fix that in a minute. But a lot of that's gonna be done with the body control and compensating. That's spine 2. I don't, like I said, not an incredible amount of, yeah, we don't have a lot to do there. Everything looks good on the spine. So now we'll move through the arms, and then that'll be that. That'll be everything, actually. Yeah, it doesn't look like we have so where do we want it to go? So let's watch where it's moving. So it's down there. It's going to end up over there. I'm just wondering if we just put it up a little bit like that. Oh, that makes it look a little stiff. Yeah, I didn't want to do that. It does look a little like it's just kind of along for the ride. We could drag the arm a little bit. So we're gonna fix that again. Since we're in a layered workflow, I'm trying to do just the shoulder, and then he'll bring it back around. So we're gonna have some, we're gonna want to do some overshoot here. But all right, now let's work on the elbow. And I think we have some work to do here. Okay. So we're gonna end up just slapping the thigh there. We're gonna want to add some, yeah, effect to that, because right now it's kind of just following the rest of the body without any issue whatsoever. So let's get into this and we'll figure out where we need to. There is about the last moment. I think it needs that. Just really want to avoid him performing impromptu surgery on his leg. And remember, hand posing comes in my opinion, I always do hand posing during polish. That's just a preference. You can do your hand posing now as part of the layered workflow. Just now move on to hands and pose them in detail. But in my case, and I'm doing this poorly, I'm just kind of walking forward frame by frame and doing this, but really, if you look, you can see a pretty nice linear behavior here. So what you could have done was just come to this frame, made the modification needed. Yeah, it actually looks fine. And delete all the ones in the middle. Yeah, it actually doesn't even look bad. I do think, however, this has to be that. So I think in this case, we have to bring that up so he stays, because we want to avoid that popping that you just saw right there. We want to avoid that altogether. Oh, it actually looks pretty good. Oh, nice. It even looks like he's smacking his thigh, which makes it look a little more natural. Obviously, we got to fix this arm because he's going straight into an arm forward swing, which makes no sense because he's like a robot right back to walking after. So that's a good arm. Now we'll go get this arm. So what we're going to end up doing to make this look a little more natural is dragging this arm behind, like right about here. I'm going to bring that a little more back. You see how now that this isn't moving with the rest of the body, it keeps going after he stops rotating. And that's gonna, when we combine that with the elbow, we actually want to hold it just a little bit longer. So we're going to do another ease. So we have our tweens. I'm going to move these down to where they're maybe not in the middle of our view. There we go. So, and now we have a easing problem here that I think we can solve by just doing this. Let's just see. Yeah, we still got to just snap. That's just happening too fast, but we'll get that in a minute. That's not an arm issue. That's actually a torso issue. And then we'll do the same thing over here. We're going to just, and I think I want it to drag in the direction of, the one good thing about world controls here is the character is traveling in the Y direction. So if I go do my rotations in world space, I'm actually causing my drag to happen in world space as well. So we'll go ahead and just look at the lower arm. We're gonna let that just, no, I think we wanted that to snap out there a little bit more. Not that much, but, so I think, but like over here, I think we wanted him to be a little more like that. So that when it comes out here, we'll just start our ease a little bit more. And then that might actually be here. We're gonna come here and keep that like this. And then we'll come back and we're actually going to, and now we have work to do over here because it just happens too suddenly. Now these blends that I'm doing, which is just removing keys and allowing the spine interpolation to handle it. Yes, it smooths it out, but it's not going to cause, like really what I want to happen here is I want this arm to be swinging forward. So for example, like right about, let's just watch it. Yeah, I would probably hit it there and then blend it back out. It's probably gonna snap. Yeah. So we want it to start the blend over here. Yeah, there we go. So much more natural. But it's still happening too fast. And by the way, there's a thing that we can do here. We can retime this to slow this portion down, and that's going to make it look more natural. I'll show that in the polish phase as well. And while I'm here, this is a polish thing, but while I'm here, I'm also going to just drag the hand. So that, so in this case, we can actually do the same thing where we drag the hand forward now. We'll get rid of these interim keys to let that happen more smoothly. And then we'll fall off from it more smoothly. And now you've got a nice, yeah, see that? So that, it's a little severe. So let's just make it a minor one. See now it just, see how his arm is no longer just moving as a holistic. Ignore the fact that he's just rotating into a robot walk. If you just focus on the arm, the right arm, see that nice kind of a pendulum action going on between the elbow. It's kind of like there's a pendulum from the shoulder to the elbow and then the elbow to the wrist, and that's all just free hanging. And there we go. Just produce a nice, much more natural interior. We'll just focus in on that because I think that's a huge thing for making animations that feel alive. So if you watch, see that, like that right arm is now, like there's a little hitch right there. And slow motion is sometimes good for showing you right there where we need to smooth out an arc, but you can also see that in arc tracking as well. All right, so that's step one. Step two is going to be the polish phase where we go retime this. We change the torso in order to get this turn to happen a little more. It needs some weight. So the torso needs to come down and then back up, which it's just not doing. If we look at the trails. Yeah, the torso is just flat. And really what needs to happen here is we need a dip to show that he's landing on his legs and the weight of his body is pushing his center of gravity down and then coming back up. And we need that rotation to happen more organically. So we'll essentially lead with the head, bring the chest behind it, and then after that, finally, the body control will come and rotate out. But we also have some speed issues because he is just picking right up like nothing happened at all. It's not the worst, but it's still just a little snappy. It's happening too fast. And we can, like I said, we can absolutely slow this down. And so why don't I do that while I'm here? I'll show you. So in the next tutorial, I'll show you the polish phase where we go in, we do all the hand posing, we get everything tweaked, we do all our arc tracking across all the extremities to make sure that the animation is nice and smooth and makes physical sense. And we'll also fix that post-roll weight shift and getting that to be a smoother exit. And we'll test it in the game. Oh, retiming. Now I'm with you. All right, so let's go back to 0. All right, so let's go retime this animation. So we select the entire mannequin. We figure out the moment that we want to retime. It's right here. And we go select our retime controls, which is this right here. Get rid of everything but the controls that we want to. Well, that one you can actually leave in place. And then we know we want to retime starting here through to about there. No, we want this to take more time, not less. Probably a single linear retime is not going to get us. Oh, that's already doing so much. But in a game that you want to be snappy, especially a game that's got parkour in it and things like that, the reason why he's returning to his walk so quickly is you really don't want to waste that time slowing down, and you want to get back to your walk as fast as possible so it feels more responsive and everything looks how you'd expect it. And this actually doesn't look bad. All right, but that's it. See you in the next tutorial.